recording. All right. Okay, so when we left off, the last thing that we did was the assassination of Medgar Evers, right? And we're doing that right as the bell rang. Okay, so that's 63. All right, so August of 1963 is the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This is the I Have a Dream speech. This is Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream thing. It was organized by A. Philip Randolph, by Bayard Rustin. It's in Washington, D.C. It takes place on the National Mall of Washington, D.C. Have any of you guys been to Washington, D.C. before? Pooja, you've been there? Yeah. So the National Mall, for those of you who haven't been there, students always hear mall and they think like Fashion Place Mall, right? They think like a shopping mall. It's not. It's the old-timey use of the word mall where it means like gathering place. So it's the giant park. It's a giant park in the middle of Washington, D.C., where all the monuments are, basically, right? More than 1 million people. We think it's more than 1 million people. Something like 1.1 million people show up to this march. Okay, massive, massive, massive march. This is the largest gathering on the National Mall all the way until Barack Obama is elected president. Barack Obama's inauguration is bigger. Barack Obama's inauguration was something like 1.4 million, something like that. So it was massive. Yeah. So this is a huge, huge one, and this is where Martin Luther King gives his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. John F. Kennedy welcomes him to Washington, D.C. This becomes a big to-do, right? Becomes a big to-do. It's a big deal. It's on TV. It's on the news. It's all over the place, right? And this is kind of raising up Martin Luther King's profile to a national level. He's no longer a Southern guy. He's now a national figure, right? And so particularly white people across the entire country who weren't 100% sure who this MLK guy is, they have now introduced him, okay? Here's some example. They're taking pictures here. Here's A. Philip Randolph sitting next to King. Here's John Lewis, the head of the SNCC. Most of these guys are all going to be like leaders of like religious groups, right? So this is like the head of the Catholic Association. This is the head of the Jewish one. This is the one's the head of, oh wait, no, I think he's the Catholic. He's a Protestant one, I think, Presbyterian. Some of these are like labor leaders and stuff. He's the head of the NAACP at this point. So they're all up here, getting their. Let's jump to the next letter. What's our next letter? AA?
It's DD, I think.
DD?
I think that one was DD and this one's EE.
Yeah, did you want us to put DD for March on Washington?
Okay, sure. Yeah, your numbers are so far off of the other classes. The other classes finished with HH, and you guys still have like 12 things to do. So I don't know what's going on with you. All right, Kennedy's assassination. Okay, March on Washington happens in August. Kennedy gets killed in November. And we need to be clear here. John F. Kennedy gets killed because of civil rights, right? He's supporting civil rights. John F. Kennedy proposes a civil rights bill in 1963, and that bill gets shut down by Congress. It never goes anywhere, right? Kennedy is in Dallas, Texas, and he's down there he's down there doing something else, but he's down there getting assassinated. And when Lee Harvey Oswald kills JFK, the connections are Lee Harvey Oswald is connected to these like white groups that are against the civil rights movement. Okay, Lyndon Johnson becomes the president. This is him being sworn in on Air Force One, flying back to DC, or flying to DC. Here's Jackie Kennedy, JFK's wife. John F. Kennedy's in a box in the back. And so LBJ gets sworn in on the plane. Lyndon Johnson Lyndon Baines Johnson is his name. LBJ is this like kind of a tricky figure for the civil rights movement. Okay, he's very famous as like a senator and a congressman. He like knows how to run Congress. He can run Congress like no one else has ever run Congress. LBJ might be like the best Congress person the country has seen in 100 years. Okay, he knows how to get laws passed. He knows how to compromise. He knows who's in power, and he knows where the skeletons are buried. Like he knows, you know, he knows who he can work with. He knows who he needs to force. Like he is really, really good at this. Okay, because he's such a good and skilled politician, he isn't an ideologue. It means he doesn't strongly believe in any one thing. He believes in the process. He believes in getting things done. He doesn't really truly believe in civil rights. He doesn't really truly believe in a lot of these issues until he becomes president. When he becomes president, he changes quite a bit. And he's actually going to become, in some ways, a champion for civil rights. He's going to get the civil rights legislature passed, right? But it's kind of weird because up until this point, he had been basically silent on the issue, right? Like it was a losing issue. So he didn't back it. Like he only backs winning issues, you know? It's kind of an interesting kind of a deal with LBJ. All right. Kennedy's assassination is important for the movement because Kennedy becomes a martyr for the movement. He becomes a martyr for the movement. And because Kennedy was killed, LBJ uses that to propel these things forward. Okay? Because the Civil Rights Act will get passed the next year, but LBJ gets it passed, in the name of JFK, right? But we have a bunch of stuff that's going to happen between then. Okay, let's go. FF. FF for Florida. For Florida. All right, so FF stands for the St. Augustine movement. This is in Florida. This is happening over the course of like a full year. Okay, we've been having all these sit-ins. St. Augustine, Florida has what we call a wade-in, where they're wading into the water. Okay, Florida has segregated beaches. Of course, all the black beaches are like industrial wastelands and terrible, rocky, nasty beaches, where like garbage is being dumped, sewage and stuff, right? And the black people of Florida want to be able to use the white beaches, right? That look a lot like Pooja's background. That's nice. And so they're doing wade-ins where they're wading into the beach. Unsurprisingly, we're going to get white violence again, right? Only this time it's white violence in a bathing suit, right? So they're going to do this. The St. Augustine movement is being led by this man, Hosea Williams. Hosea Williams is another veteran from World War II. Another veteran from World War II. I think he got three Purple Hearts in World War II. He's a three times decorated veteran of World War II. Also close personal friends with Martin Luther King. After the war, he became a minister and he lives down in Florida. And so he's going to become the leader of this St. Augustine movement. You guys have probably seen this image before, right? This is a pretty famous image. Have you not seen it? No? Okay, well, you're seeing it now. Okay. The St. Augustine movement becomes it comes to a head in June of '64, right? So these wade-ins have been going on for months, right? But June of '64 at the Monson Motor Lodge, it's a hotel, it's a motel in St. Augustine, Florida. And Hosea Williams and the SNCC, they get a couple of Jewish rabbis, and the rabbis rent rooms in the motel, right? The motel won't serve black people. And so the rabbis rent rooms, Jewish rabbis from New York, they rent rooms in the hotel, and they invite a bunch of SNC young black people to come use the pool as their guest. Now, pools have been deeply segregated, and pools are this like flashpoint of the movement, because white people believed that if they're in the water with a black person, that the blackness is going to seep through the water and like get into them, right? And it's going to like corrupt their bodies. Yeah, we're dealing with some real deep thinkers and real, great science on this moment, right? But this is what the white people are scared of. And so the black people are using swimming pools. They get into the swimming pool. The owner of the lodge, he first tries to hit them with like a pool scripture thing, pool thing, right? And he's trying to hit them, but they swim into the middle of the pool where he can't reach them. So he then leaves and he gets bottles of hydrochloric acid and he starts to pour the hydrochloric acid into the water. And the hydrochloric acid starts to react with the chemicals in the water, and it starts to bubble up and spray acid into the face of the kids. I'm saying kids, I think they're teenagers. They're SNCC, so they're probably college students. They're probably not kids. I said kids, but they're probably not kids. I don't know their exact age. Regardless, they're still getting acid in their face. This is going to become a big, famous image, and the video of him doing this goes on the news, and this is going to, you know, the whole country is going to be like, oh my God, what are you doing pouring acid on kids, right? The whole country goes up in arms on this. Parallel, at the same time, let's introduce Malcolm X. Okay, so GG, right? GG, Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam and Malcolm X. The Nation of Islam is the last of our really big groups that we need. All right, so Nation of Islam is founded, so Nation of Islam is a Black American branch of Islam. It's a Black American branch of Islam, the religion Islam. Okay. It also acts like a political group sometimes. So it's a religion, but it acts like a political group. You know, the lines are a little bit fuzzy sometimes. It grows to be about 30,000 members in about 10 years. So at this point in time, it's about 30,000 members. Okay. It's founded by this man here, Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad is, he's the founder of the Nation of Islam, and he converted to Islam, and he believes a modified version of Islam. So he's not practicing like standard Islam that is around the world. He's not practicing Sunni Islam. He has a specific belief. And his specific belief, he believes that God talked to him and told him this. His specific belief is that white skin is the mark of the devil. And he doesn't mean this as a metaphor. He means this literally. He means that the devil is operating on earth and interacting with people, and the more devil you have in you, the lighter your skin will be. Right? Light skin, blonde hair, blue eyes is the mark of the devil. And that white people are creators and carrying out of evil on the earth. Right? And I have to emphasize the fact that this is not a metaphor. He is talking like in a religious sense, literally, he is saying that white people on the planet Earth are the devil. Okay? And he says that the evidence he has is that everywhere you see a white government, the white government is oppressing people, right? It's oppressing people in the United States. It's oppressing Black people. It's oppressing the continent of Africa. It's oppressing India. It's oppressing South Asia. It's oppressing everyone, right? The white people have all of their money, all of their power, and it's all based on oppression and hurting people and taking from them. And that's the evidence of the devil working through them. Okay. He makes an argument that, well, let's convert Malcolm X first. Let's introduce Malcolm X. Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little. He was born Malcolm Little, but he changes his name once he converts to Islam. He is from, Malcolm X is from, he grew up in the North. He was born in Nebraska. He was born in Nebraska, but he grows up living in Michigan and New York for different parts of his childhood, right? So he's from the North. Malcolm X, his father was murdered by the KKK when he was a young boy. His father his father was murdered by the KKK. And then his mother was forcibly put into an institution. Right? So as a child, Malcolm X lost his father and like had to pull his father's mangled body down off of a tree, right? Lost his father and his mother. His mother, we today would recognize that she was going through trauma, like PTSD trauma, right? But the doctors at the time said that she was a danger and that she was dangerous. They forced her into a mental institution and they gave her drugs that fried her brain. She never gets out of the mental institution and she's never able to be like a functioning person again, really. So Malcolm X gets passed around, Malcolm Little, the child, he gets passed around to family members in Michigan and in New York. And he grows up and he gets into some crime, becomes kind of a criminal. And in jail, he's in jail in Michigan when he meets a bunch of Nation of Islam members also in jail. And this is where they open his eyes to Islam. And they make an argument that Christianity is the tool of white people. Christianity is a corruption of God's message, and that Christianity is a tool that white people use to hurt and control people. And that black people were never meant to be Christians. Christianity is like a fake religion, basically, is what they believe, right? And that Islam, on the other hand, is a religion for them. Malcolm X becomes a Muslim and then becomes the loudest, clearest voice for the Nation of Islam in the entire country. Okay. Malcolm X's message centers around the idea of Black power and Black nationalism. We're gonna in a later letter, we're gonna define Black power. For now, just put it here and we'll just leave it undefined and we'll come back to it a little bit later. Organizationally, it makes sense if we put it later. Okay, just trust me that it's coming. I won't leave you alone. Oh, this reminds me. So we were scheduled to take your test on Thursday, but we're obviously not there. Obviously not, right? And that's A-Day is 2 days ahead of you guys because I got the extra day with them when we did the schedule change when we lost our Fridays. And then I also lost a day with you guys last week because of the fall break. So we are going to finish this probably today and Thursday, and then we'll talk about outlines on Thursday. I want you to, if we can, do your outlines so that we can have a discussion of them on Thursday, okay? And then we'll have you guys take the test next on Tuesday. Okay, so I'm gonna have everyone take the test on Monday, Tuesday next week. Is that clear? You guys with me on that? We're all good? We're all good? Okay. All right. I'm gonna leave this alone. We're gonna come back and pick up Malcolm X. But I just want you to be aware that this is a big, big movement and it's a powerful movement and it's getting a lot of followers, people who are converting to Islam, but also people not interested in converting to Islam, but like the Black Power message, right? He's got 30,000 members, but he probably has 100,000 followers, okay? And if you look at the March on Washington, Malcolm X has a bunch of Muslims here with up on stage with him, right? If you watch videos of it and stuff, you'll see the Muslims there. They're a big presence. It's a notable big presence. Okay. All right. Let's go to the Freedom Summer. This is again happening at the same time. So St. Augustine is happening at the same time. Nation of Islam's Power Base is happening, and Freedom Summer is happening. Okay, so these are all at the same time. So Freedom Summer, make it its own number. What are we up to? H-I-G-H-H, double H? Double H, okay. So double H, Freedom Summer is centered in Mississippi. This is a movement centered in Mississippi. And it's a collective movement by all four of these groups, okay? The SNCC, CORE, NAACP, and the SCLC, they all work together and they call themselves COFO in this case. The COFO really only exists for this one thing. It's not like a movement that's going to continue on, right? It's more important that you know that they're all working together. The goal of the Freedom Summer is to get as many Black people registered to vote as possible. Okay, voter registration for Black people in the South at this time period is about 3%. Only 3% of Black people in the South are registered to vote. These guys are going to try to get this raised. Now, we have to really kind of take a moment with this, and we have to recognize how deeply deficient the Black education has been. Okay, at this point in time, Mississippi has a literacy rate, Black literacy rate of about 70%. So this means almost a third of Black people in Mississippi can't read at all. That means that they read on less than a second grade level. Almost a third. It's the most illiterate part of the country. It still is the most illiterate part of the country today. Look at that. Way to go, Mississippi. All right. And the education system is so deficient that about a third or half of Black people in Mississippi don't even know what voter registration is. They don't even know that voting is a right that was taken away from them. They don't even understand it in that concept, right? Like they don't know what the 15th Amendment is. They don't know what voting is. They don't know what voter registration is. They don't know that they should be allowed to vote, right? And we're dealing with like numbers, like it could be as high as like half of Mississippians don't even know that, right? That's how ignorant they are. That's how bad the school systems are. Is that somewhere around half of Mississippians don't even know, right? And so they aren't angry about it because they don't know that they've lost it. It's kind of like my dog, right? If you think about like my dog at home, when my Wi-Fi goes out, how angry do you think my dog gets about that? He doesn't care because my dog doesn't know how to use the computer, so he doesn't care when the Wi-Fi goes out, right? My dog just sits there wanting me to pet him, right? Like his life is really unchanged, right? And the Black people, I didn't mean to call them dogs. That's unfortunate. That wasn't what I meant. But they oftentimes aren't angry because they don't know what they're missing. Does that make sense to you? Okay. All right. So the goal here is voter registration. In order to achieve this goal, they have to open up freedom schools, freedom libraries, and freedom houses. So they literally are traveling from town to town, opening up schools, teaching people how to read, teaching people what democracy is, what voting is, how to register them, right? Libraries to give them access to things, houses to hide the membership, like members and stuff who are activists and stuff. The movement is founded by these three people, right? MZ Moore. We've seen MZ Moore before. Where have we seen him before? He's come up a couple times.
He's a militant.
He's one of the veterans. He's one of the veterans that we found. He was also involved with Emmett Till. What was he with Emmett Till? In the Emmett Till story? MZ Moore is one of the people. MZ Moore is one of the people who found Emmett Till's body. Okay, so MZ Moore is one of the founders here. Bob Moses. Let's get a little bit of detail on Bob Moses. Bob Moses, he's still alive today, actually, and Bob Moses was an education activist. He's an education activist. In fact, he's going to later on earn the Presidential Medal of Freedom because he dedicates his entire life to education reform of America. He becomes very famous for his calculus program, where he's teaching calculus to young Black kids, and he starts teaching them at like 4th grade, right, to prove that they can learn and to prove that they can do this. He's actually going to become very famous for this. This is the movement that kind of gets him active, but he's going to stay active all the way until today. Like he's probably retired. He's 80 now, but he stays active all the way up through the 90s, through the 2000s, right? I think Barack Obama gives him the Presidential Medal of Freedom for this. So it's pretty cool. Bob Moses, he's still alive today. Fannie Lou Hamer, unfortunately, she dies in the 1970s. But Fannie Lou Hamer, she becomes one of the big advocates, and she like this is her in court testifying on stuff. She unfortunately is going to be a target of a lot of violence. A lot of violence. She's going to get targeted a lot. She very famously in one of her testimonies, she talks about her Mississippi appendectomy. Mississippi appendectomy, put it in quotes, a Mississippi appendectomy. This is something that happened to her when she was a young girl. She was, well, not a girl, she was like 20. She was a woman. So she was like 20 years old when she was young. She got sick with like pneumonia or something, and she went to the hospital. And while she was there, the doctors gave her drugs. She knocked her out, and she woke up without a uterus. They forcibly did a hysterectomy on her when she was like 21, because the doctors had a program of forced sterilization where they would sterilize people against their will, if the doctors deemed that the people were not worthy of producing children. Okay, yeah. This becomes standard practice. At this point in time, it was standard practice in like 25 states. Okay, and Mississippi does its last Mississippi appendectomy in 1994. Yeah, the 90s, you guys. Mississippi does this in the 90s. I was in high school and Mississippi was still doing this to people. Right? It's just another example. Like if people tell you, why are Black people so angry about this stuff? It's a long time ago. Dude, it's not a long time ago. They were doing this to people 30 years ago. Okay? The great beehive state, go Utah. We do forced sterilization all the way till the early 1980s. Yeah, mostly on Native Americans. The federal government does this to Native American women all the way until like 95. Yeah, on Indian reservations. All right, so the Freedom Summer, I'm repeating myself, but the Freedom Summer is also going to produce massive, it's a big movement. It's a huge movement with protests all over the place and stuff, but it produces a huge backlash of violence. Massive. Look at these numbers here, you guys. 37 churches bombed. 37 churches bombed. 30 Black homes or businesses bombed. 1,000 Freedom Summer activists arrested, right? 4 Freedom Summer workers killed. The most famous example is these 3 right here. These 3, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, they get killed. They turn up missing, and it turns into this big manhunt looking for them. They find their bodies in a ditch. They get killed. Schwerner and Goodman were both from New York. They're white Jews from New York. White Jews from New York who had come down. Cheney is Mississippi. He's native to Mississippi. Right? This just gives you more examples, right? CORE is bringing people from the north coming down. Okay? The violence of St. Augustine plus the violence of the Freedom Summer produces this, the next letter. What time do we have? Okay, this will probably be the last one. This is probably where we're going to stop. And we're mostly done. We're mostly done, but we're going to have to do at least 30 minutes of class on Thursday, probably. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't go as long with you guys because Zoom is terrible, right? Zoom's terrible. So I end up having to chunk this a little bit, you know. All right. So Civil Rights Act 1964. This is like a top 5 greatest laws America ever passed. Nicely done. Woohoo! America -- 1, right? The Civil Rights Act basically it prohibits discrimination based on this is the very famous phrase. Discrimination is prohibited based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Okay, a lot of states later on will add sexual orientation on here, and some states have added gender identity on here now as well. Okay, the Great Beehive State has not added it. Nope. Shocking, I know. Sorry, guys. Sorry to disappoint you. This is all the more reason why you should vote. Okay. Okay, so it makes it illegal to do this for any kind of public accommodation, anything public accommodation that's anything run by the government. Also, anything that serves the public. So this includes like McDonald's, right? McDonald's can't discriminate against you if McDonald's is open to the public. Okay, and anything that's open to the public. It also includes hiring, promoting, and firing, right? This is where you can't fire someone for being Black anymore or pass them up for promotion because of it. It also strengthens the enforcement of the voting rights and desegregation. Also here, it's important that we also make a note, this includes women as well. So you can't fire people for being women. You can't fire women for being women anymore. You can't do any of this. This is going to become the propellant of women's rights as well during this time period. Okay, women and race are both linked into this, or gender and sex and race are both linked in. All right, here's LBJ signing it, Martin Luther King, and a bunch of old white guys, right? Right? And LBJ passes this. It's largely what JFK wanted passed, but JFK's died in committee, but LBJ gets to push it through, right? He pushes it through, and the violence of the summer turns public sentiment against this. It's interesting that this passes with about half of the Republicans and about half of the Democrats voting for it, because at this point in time, this is where the parties are in the middle of their switch, right? So the parties are like, both parties are like half conservative, half liberal. You know, they're both half like 50-50, basically. This is the point where the KKK and Martin Luther King are both Democrats, right? It's like a kind of a strange moment in American history, right? The Civil Rights Act of 1964 passes and racism is solved forever, right? Yash doesn't seem to believe that. You seem a little dubious, Yash. Yeah. This is going to lead us into, this is racism solved forever. This is the way that white America is going to think about this, actually. White America is like, oh, right, we finally solved the Negro problem. Oh, sweet, right? And all the white people of America give each other high fives, and they all just go back to, you know, eating mayonnaise and stuff. They all go back to eating, you know, things that without hot sauce. And Black America is not done. Black America is going to do the march on Selma. How much time do we have? We could do March on Selma. It's pretty short. So this is the march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama, and it's a march for voting. It's a march for voting. This is essentially Black America saying, dude, we're not done. We're not done. We still can't vote. We still can't do any of this stuff, right? And this may shock you. This may shock you, but the southern states don't obey the Civil Rights Act. I know. I was really surprised when I found that out too. Shocking, huh? Right? So this is them saying we're not done. Okay. So they're marching from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. We got Martin Luther King here in the middle, or he's over here. Yeah. And predictably, what do you think is going to happen during this march?
Blood.
What?
Bloodshed. Yep. All
Shocked? Are you guys shocked and surprised?
No.
I know. My entire class, I feel every single thing I tell you, it results in bloodshed, right? Well, good old Bull Connor. Remember Bull Connor? Right? Who is Bull Connor? Who is he? He's an ass, but what's his job? Other than being an ass, what's his job?
He's governor, isn't he?
Yep, governor of Alabama. So he, of course, sends cops out to go fight people in Selma. But this is all over the news. This is all over the news. Martin Luther King at this point in time is a worldwide figure. Okay. He has expanded past the South, past the nation. He is a worldwide figure. Okay. And as a worldwide figure, he is showing up here with all sorts of cameras and video cameras and news, people coming to film it and take pictures of it. And so when this violence comes out, this violence is broadcast around the world, right? It becomes deeply embarrassing. So we get the most famous standoff here. This is the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The Edmund Pettus Bridge, this is entering into Birmingham. As they're crossing the bridge, Edmund Pettus is, the bridge. They're crossing over the river and they're coming in here. And the cops meet them. The cops meet them to try to turn them around. We got John Lewis. What is he? Where do we know him from? Where do we know John Lewis from, guys? We've seen him a few times.
Freedom rights and stuff.
He was on the Freedom Rides. Good. What organization is he with? What'd you say,
With
Pooja?
the
SNCC.
Yep. So at this point in time, John Lewis is the leader of the SNCC. He's the leader of the SNCC. We saw him at a bunch of the sit-ins, but we also saw him in the Freedom Rides, right? At this point in time, he is getting ready to fight the cops, basically. Here's Hosea Williams. Where do we know him from? Where do we know Hosea Williams from?
St.
he
Augustine.
led the St. Augustine movement.
St. Augustine, yep. He's St. Augustine. He's the kids in the swimming pool. By this point in time, this march is 56 miles. Okay, so it's 56 miles and it takes, 20 days or 18 days. It takes 18 days, right? And it's 56 miles. So it takes a long time, right? They march a little bit and then they stop for the night and stuff, right? And by the time we get this is towards the end of the march. Bull Connor and Alabama have gotten so destroyed in the news that the cops back down. The cops back down. They don't fight. They back down and let them march in. Right? They let them march in. The result of this is Martin Luther King gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Martin Luther King is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize after this is done. And they're going to cite not just this action, but all of his actions, of course, right? He's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize in honor that was denied Gandhi. Gandhi never got the Nobel Peace Prize. Gandhi was nominated for we'll get that in the India. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, but the British blocked it. So he couldn't get it. And then he got killed, right? Okay. On Thursday, we'll do the Black Power movement. We'll do the Voting Rights Act, Black Panther Party, right? So we'll finish that stuff up, okay? This is where we're gonna leave it here. Cool? So try to do your outlines as best you can. There's at least one of the outlines, one or two of the questions that I'm not sure you can answer very well without Thursday's lesson, right? But try to do all the other ones and then we'll just kind of go over them and come up with some ideas, okay? We're not gonna be able to go over them the same way that I go over with them in person, it's just not the same. But if you guys do that, you can be okay. I'm gonna stop recording now.